Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with etrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Reflex RV steering stabilizer here on our 2020 Thor Four Winds Class C motorhome. So when you first get your Class C motorhome and you take it out for the first camping trip, you're going to probably notice just how much sway you're dealing with and how uncomfortable the ride quality is compared to your passenger vehicle. With this having such a wide, square, boxy body, it's not really going to be aerodynamic, and it's not going to really want to just cut through the wind like you would with your passenger vehicle. And on top of that, you're typically going to have one full side being your kitchenette, maybe also your bathroom, so you got a lot of weight there because you got your appliances, and then just on the other side, all you have is maybe just some couches and maybe a pull-out bed or a little dinette. So you're kind of already offset with your weight, so you're going to start leaning more to one side, and then when you add speed and wind into the mix, it just makes it a whole lot worse. So what we've done to help with that is add on a steering stabilizer, and what that's going to do is help stiffen up the steering, so that way when we're getting all of that sway back and forth, it's not going to try and drag us. And what that's going to do overall is put a lot less fatigue on you, so that way you feel a whole lot better once you reach your destination and don't feel completely tired, because right when you get there, you're probably going to have to set up everything as well. So you want to make sure that you're feeling good. That way you can really enjoy those camping experiences. So why don't we get in the shop so we can give you a better look at this and kind of go over some more details. All right, so now that we're back in the shop and we're under the vehicle, we can actually get a really good look at our steering stabilizer here, and just to kind of compare to our original factory one. So you can kind of see, originally Ford just threw on a shock or strut, whatever you want to call it here. And what that's doing is every time it tries to pull one way or the other, the strut is going to help try and fight against that essentially, because it's wanting to maintain that straight on alignment here essentially. Now the upgrade here is that not only do we have a more powerful shock, but we also now have the coil spring wrapped around it as well. So that way we have two things working against all of that pull that we feel when we're out on the road, hitting those bumps, feeling those crosswinds, or in an emergency sense when we have a tire blowout and it really wants to try to yank you one way. So overall, this is going to really help our neighbor, so that way he's maintaining straight down the roadways and he's not going to feel as fatigued when he gets to his campsite. So along with that, this is going to come with some custom fit brackets, which are just going to replace those factory ones. You can see the design isn't really much different. Here is our factory bracket. And the other one, it just doesn't have those little pieces kind of jutting out to the sides here because our shock's obviously going to be in the way. And then on the other side, similar style U-bolt setup. So very, very simple. This is something you can easily do in just a matter of minutes in your driveway, in the street, kind of wherever, because you don't need to be on a lift for this. You actually want to make sure you're on the suspension, full weight of it. That way you don't end up having anything kind of be a little wonky and then put it up there and realize, oh, now it's hitting something else. So with all that being said, like I said, this is something I feel like you could do at home, but if you just don't have the tools or the time to do so, and you got a big trip coming up, definitely feel free to use our dealer locator, and you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. If you are wanting to do this yourself, then stick around and I'll help walk you through the process. So to start off our installation, what we want to first do is make sure that our alignment with our vehicle is correct. If you have your alignment out of order, it's going to throw off how this works. So it's going to keep wanting to kind of pull you the wrong direction if you don't have that perfect to begin with. Then from there, as you pull in to whatever space you're going to be working in, you want to make sure that you have your wheels perfectly straight and then chalk them. And we don't want to lift our motorhome by the frame. We want to make sure that we are resting on the suspension. I'm using a lift, obviously, so that it's easier for you guys to see at home, but you can see we are using the weight of the suspension. We're not lifting by the frame. So we're perfectly straight. Alignment wasn't bad. This is a pretty new motorhome, so not too many issues with it. And at this point now, we can start removing our steering stabilizer from the factory, and I'm going to start off by removing this portion of it. So I'm going to pop off this flange nut and this flange nut, so that way we got more access to the bracket bolts and then also the U-bolts right here. So starting off, we'll have a 18mm socket. Pop these off. Do this one over here. And on this one, you'll also need an 18mm wrench to hold the bolt on the backside. out of the way. For the U-bolt nuts, you're gonna need a 13 millimeter. I can't turn that up to really show you it, but we'll get our 13 on. Pop those off. And now we can set these aside. Now for our frame bracket, there's 2 bolts going horizontally into the frame, and there's 1 going vertically. These are also going to be 13 millimeter, so I'll be able to use my drill for this vertical one, but for the side ones, I will have to get that out by hand with a wrench. There we go. Pull our bracket, set that aside. Okay, now in our kit, we're going to have 3 bolts, 3 lock washers, and 3 flat washers. We're going to slide those onto those supplied bolts, and these are going to be going into our chassis bracket. Now, if you look at this, it's got kind of an L shape to it. This part is going to face towards the front of the vehicle. Here's where our vertical bolt goes through, and then those 2 horizontal bolts will also go into the frame, just like so. So we can set this up, and I'm going to get one of these in just to help hold it up out of the way, just by hand. And I'm just going to run these all down, get them nice and snug. All right, for those new bolts, those are going to be a 17 millimeter instead of a 18 or a 13. And we are going to tighten these fully down, so we'll see that lock washer crushed. For our next step, we'll take our U-bolts and our tie rod bracket. We're going to put those together. We'll have a flat washer and a nylock nut that's going to go on each one here, and we're going to get these all tightened down evenly, but we'll have to kind of wait and get our stabilizer in place first, so that way we can figure out exactly where this needs to sit before we fully tighten it down. All right, next it's time to get our steering stabilizer ready. Now the bushings on here, I've already flipped them around, but they didn't come on the correct way. There's 2 sides. You can see one's a little bit larger than the other is. We want to make sure that the larger end is going towards our bracket. So if we look up with our bracket and we put this here, this is going to match the size of that hole there. The other one's not, and that's going to allow for play. You can see how much I can move that around. If I flip it around to this way, no play at all, and that's what we want. So make sure that you are putting these on correctly when you pop that in. Starting off, I'm going to get this onto the chassis side, I guess, since we can still move this one around. Get our bushings the correct orientation. Pop on the end plate and our flange nut, and we don't need to fully tighten this yet, just getting it started here. And we'll do the same thing over on this side, and like I said, I had to flip these around. Okay, now I'm trying to get this nice and straight here, but it's also a little harder to get into this because we have the bracket behind our stabilizer here. So the idea is have this nice and level. I'm using a 14 millimeter wrench, but you could also use a 9/16 if you have one. And we're just gonna keep snugging these down until we get it where we want it. We're getting to a point where each one of these is getting nice and snug. Okay, now we can start tightening up our clamps at the end. Next, we're going to be taking a 15 millimeter wrench. I prefer a ratcheting one for this to make it a little bit easier, and a set of locking pliers here. We're going to pop that onto the end of the rod here. Well, actually, let me put my ratcheting wrench on first, and then we'll pop that on. And what that's going to do is hold that inner rod, so that way we can tighten down, and we'll start to see these bushings here bulge. You want to keep one hand on your pliers, We want to go till it's just really kind of starting to bulge. So I'm not too far off. I've already kind of ran it down just a little bit. All right, I'm happy with that. I'm going to move over to the other side. We're going to do the same thing. All right, now that we have our bushings nice and tightened down, that is going to do it for the install side of this. The next part is actually going out and test driving it, making sure that it's not catching on anything. So if we were on the ground right now, I'd have somebody else get inside, turn the wheels all the way to one side, turn them all the way to the other side, and kind of just watch it and make sure that it doesn't bump into anything else. But to be honest, we don't really have too much around it. They do talk about the radiator hose possibly being in the way, but we're actually pretty good on this one. We've got pretty good clearance. So I am happy with it, how it is now. Like I said, we're gonna go test drive it in just a bit. If you find it's kind of pulling one way or the other and you don't like that, all you gotta do is come back down, loosen up the 4 U-bolt nuts, and then you can kind of let it rest and find where it needs to sit, retighten them back down, torque them to the specs that are listed in the instructions, and then retest it again. Just go around for another little drive, see if it's gotten any better or if you need to loosen it and kind of play with that positioning on this bracket just a little bit more. But the big thing here is just making sure it's all nice and tight, snug to the tie rod, so that way when it turns and pulls back and forth, it'll actually be doing what it's meant to do. Well, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Roadmaster Reflex RV steering stabilizer here on our 2020 Thor Four Winds Class C motorhome. My name's Kevin, and if you still have some questions about what's going to be the right steering stabilizer for your Class C motorhome, please feel free to reach out to us via our Ask the Experts link, a comment on this video, or a phone call to our customer service department, and we'd be happy to help you out on your journey.